Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast. I'm your host, DylanLasagna, and this is episode number 225 of this icy yet spicy podcast for all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports by a filthy casual fan, that being me. And in this episode, we're here to talk about another week that was and another week that will be around the 2024 NFL season, this week being week 7, and the week that will be week number 8. So before we get into this episode today, a little bit of housekeeping before we get the ball rolling. Make sure you follow Very Cold Lasagna on social media, wherever I am, that being Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. And for all my audio listeners out there, make sure you listen to Very Cold Lasagna wherever it is available, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. And for all my people watching on YouTube, make sure you smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, smash the notification bell, especially if you're not subscribed yet, if you're not being notified yet, do all that good stuff. And then leave a comment down below with your own takes on each and every episode that I upload, or even the exclusive YouTube videos with your own takes on all those topics that I talk about. This specifically being everything that happened in week 7 and everything that will happen in week 8. And as always, make sure you share Very Cold Lasagna with your friends, your neighbors, strangers, all the people around you, whether it's at work, at home, or school, even in your neighborhood. Share the good, the bad, the ugly about this podcast entitled Very Cold Lasagna. So that being said, let's get this ball rolling, shall we, with episode 225 and talk about first around the NFL, the week that was. Week 7 in the National Football League. There's some things to talk about and some things we can touch less on because it was another one of those weeks. Well, not less terrible than the previous week because it was a bunch of blowouts. Well, this week, yeah, there were still blowouts. There were a few interesting contests, but then we had another certain thing running wild in the National Football League, and we'll touch on what exactly that plague was as we go along in this episode. So, week 7, we're getting close to that halfway point in this NFL season, but not quite there yet, but we're getting there. So, let's talk about the week that was. We only had 2 teams on bye this week, that being the Chicago Bears and the Dallas Cowboys. So if you're a fan of those teams, you got the nice vacay along with those teams. They'll be back next week. So we kick things off with a Thursday night football game, only for that Jeff Bezos money for $15.99 a month, pal. As, man, we got another snooze fest on Thursday night. But somebody had to win it, right? And that's exactly what the Denver Broncos did, as Javonte Williams and Will Lutz, the kicker, led the charge with a 2 touchdown and 3 field goal game respectively. They had a okay showing in another one of those boring Thursday night games as Denver beat the New Orleans Saints 33-10. Not really a whole lot to take away from this game because, well, both teams were really bad in this one. I will say about the New Orleans Saints, though, yeah, they're 2-5 now. They're 2-5 now. They're gonna be going into I wouldn't necessarily say another tough game next week, but if they lose that game, and I'm not sure when exactly Derek Carr is gonna come back from his oblique injury, but even if he is gonna come back at some point during this season, if they keep losing all these games, I'm not sure if he's gonna be able to save their season, even if he is healthy to come back, and when he's healthy enough to come back. Because you look at this team, they're dropping like flies. They don't have Chris Olave right now. Rashid Shaheed, his other top receiver, he's out for the season. It's like, who does he have left to throw to? Being honest here. So, I mean, even if they get Derek Carr back, what's left of this New Orleans Saints offense? You know, that started out 2-0. I thought they were not going to be mid this coming year. And then here we are back again, right back to the land of mid, the land of the big hard in the big easy. So then we get into the Sunday slate of games, starting with the early morning portion. In the London, mate, of all in, all elite, the Jaguars certainly went all in to save their season. They scored 25 unanswered points on the New England Patriots after the Patriots scored 10. They scored first 10 straight. So they scored. Jaguars did 25 unanswered points to save their season, beating the New England Patriots 31-16 in a kind of okay-ish London game, but it was a pretty much relatively convincing victory for the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you're looking at it from the perspective of a Patriots fan, Drake May again looked pretty okay in this performance, in another blowout loss for them. Making some good and bad decisions with the football. Again, though, you can't really do much to make up for the poor performances from the rest of the team. The offensive line, the defense, pretty much all around. So he can only do as much as he can. Meanwhile, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, you look at that team, they put on probably their best performance all year. They're going to certainly need it, because if they want to, where are they at? 2-4 now? No, 2-5. If they want to try to get anything going in their season, I mean, you got good performances from your rookies, Tank Bigsby, Brian Thomas Jr., and you certainly got your best performance out of Trevor Lawrence. And again, it's all coming from against a crappy team like the Patriots. Then you're certainly going to have to need it in the next month. Next game up is against the Packers. Then you play the Eagles, the Vikings, the Lions, all before the bye week at the end of November. Good luck with that. But when you look at the Jaguars, if they want to have any kind of success, if they want to try to pull off any magic tricks out of their butt, they're gonna have to find what worked here against the Patriots and try to go on a run. Meanwhile, in the ATL, Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks offense, they bounced back from a poor showing against the 49ers with a big showing against the Atlanta Falcons. Got a strong win over Atlanta, 34-14. And that was thanks to, again, Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, and Kenneth Walker all delivering big, while minimizing the Falcons to just 14 points. Atlanta, even though they had over 300 yards of total offense, Kirk Cousins, he did pretty good in this game, but unfortunately, again, 300 yards of total offense, but it only had 14 points to show for it. It was a disappointing game for Atlanta after they had 3 straight games, 3 straight division wins, mind you, but they couldn't figure out the Seahawks defense, and not even couldn't keep it close, mind you. But going back to the Seattle side of things, this was the bounce back win that they really needed. I would still be wary of them as a playoff contender, but for now, this is a win that they really needed to have. So going back to the Eastern side of things, after allowing 10 points to start the game, the Buffalo Bills scored 34 unanswered points behind Josh Allen's 2-touchdown game to beat the Tennessee Titans in relatively easy fashion, 34-10. So looking at the Bills, they actually recently traded for Amari Cooper. They were using this game to integrate him into the offense. He still wasn't kind of there, to be honest with you, but still, he's new to the team, so it's fully expected. And once they fully get him into the offense, once he fully learns it, then I feel like the Bills can be a kind of dangerous team in the AFC, and maybe fully take control of the division once again. And Amari Cooper did get a touchdown on his first catch and get a little bit more comfortable. In the land, Cleveland, the duo of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins struck lightning for Joe Burrow and the Bengals, taking care of the Browns 21-14 in the Battle of Ohio, round 1 of this season. So for the Bengals, even in a win, the Bengals, they still got some issues that they have to fix. But the good news is for them, though, they're 3-4. They have a tough matchup coming up next week, but this is what they have to do to instill some confidence in themselves. But again, still some issues, especially with the offensive line. Their defense, yeah, they played well, but it was against a weak team. But they're going to be tested next week. But these were the wins that they really needed. Last week, it was against a weak team in the Giants, which I guess was something. This week was against a skid marks team, which I'm going to talk about in just a few seconds. But they're 3-4. They could go 4-4 next week if they could pull off an upset. But this is absolutely where they needed to be to get right back on track. Now, for the skid marks. Sunday, they thought there was a little bit of a hope, a little bit of optimism in that little lake of theirs. They got Nick Chubb back from that devastating knee injury, which was gruesome. Don't recommend watching that knee injury video. But they managed to get him back. It was nice to see him out there. But unfortunately, it also saw the departure of their quarterback because of another devastating knee injury. That quarterback being Deshaun Watson. It was pretty bad. It was a non-contact injury. It was kind of remind me of the Kevin Durant injury from 5 years ago. He was just like planted his leg and then it buckled. So, unfortunately, you know what that meant? Torn Achilles. Deshaun Watson suffered a non-contact torn Achilles, and well, he's pretty much out for the season. So, yes, you can think of what you want about Deshaun Watson, and I know I have my reservations about Deshaun Watson, but looking at it from the football perspective of it, some people will say karma, and go ha-ha, and hee-hee, and I get it. Some people say it's deserved, but I'm looking at it from the football side perspective on the side of things. That's what we do here on Very Cold Lasagna. This is going to be a major blow. It is definitely going to be a major blow. It's his second major knee injury in less than a decade. And I believe in not even 5 years. Because of the torn ACL that he suffered in his rookie year when he was with the Texans. So, oof. Yeah, that's really not good for Watson. And he also had the shoulder injury too, if I remember correctly. So when you're looking at it from Cleveland all around, this trade really is not looking good for the skid marks. Like, it really isn't. Because Deshaun Watson, he's been playing poorly. He's had a little bit of flashes here and there, but still, it hasn't really outweighed enough of how poor he's played. He hasn't had those flashes of, it hasn't like overcome whatever he's dealing with whether it's the coaching or himself, to get back to where he was when he was at Houston, and probably never get back to the point where it was with this play with the Texans. So when you look at it with the skid marks, this latest injury to Deshaun Watson, it really makes it one of the worst, if not the worst, trades in NFL history, with how poor he's played, his robbery of a contract, and now this injury. Like, literally this injury. And now here we go. Once again, with the Browns, they have literally wiped their ass of another shit stain of a very terrible deal. It's like literally that bad. Now they have to go with another quarterback, another backup quarterback. Not only that for the rest of the season, but they also have to figure out, what do they do? What did they do on the offseason? Like, they can't necessarily ditch Deshaun Watson because of that big fat contract that I just talked about. But they're certainly not going to win a lot of games this season. But at the same time, it's just like, what do you even do if you get a high draft pick? It's like, do you use that on a quarterback? Do you use it on something else? It's like, what do you do if you're the Cleveland skid marks? It's like, it's gonna be interesting how they go from here. So moving on, we had the Houston Texans taking on the Green Bay Packers, and the new kicker for Green Bay, Brandon McManus, sealed the game winner for the whiteout Packers. Yes, they had a winter warning in Green Bay in October for some reason. But anyway, the whiteout Packers won this tense affair with Houston 24-20 in a game where both quarterbacks really struggled in this one. But it was pretty evident with CJ Stroud, who really misses Nico Collins. Like, I really would have thought that he would have had some trust with Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. But it was mainly him and Joe Mixon. Like, Joe Mixon has been serving as that engine for the Texans offense, but in the passing game, it's been kind of mixed results with Dell, who I thought he was kind of that number 2 with CJ Stroud and Nico Collins last year, but before the injury. But for whatever reason, he hasn't come along as of right now. But for now, it's been Joe Mixon running that offense behind CJ Stroud. So hopefully he picks up later on before Nico Collins comes back. Meanwhile, for the Packers, yeah, they won, but just like with CJ Stroud, who was struggling in this game, Jordan Love was also struggling in this game because he kept throwing the ball to the wrong guys. And this is like another game where he was making some pretty bad decisions. Like, he was just like yeeting the ball, or he was just like rushing to get that thing out. So yeah, Jordan Love has to make some really better decisions with the football. He has to be smarter with it. So the Packers were barely able to escape with the win, but in tight NFC North race, barely is not going to cut it. Like, Matt LaFleur really needs to talk to his quarterback to help him mentally clean this up. So in the home of the Royal Rumble next year in Indianapolis, Tyler Goodson's goal line touchdown and a couple of Matt Gay field goals lifted the Colts past the hapless Miami Dolphins 16-10. So for this game, it was a test of fans' patience on Anthony Richardson per se. Yes, he came back for this game after missing a couple due to the rib injury that he had. They were booing him at one point, but I mean, it's not like he played outright terrible for most of the game. Sure, he was missing some passes in this one, but again, it's not like he did terrible. So, and you also forget that he's coming off a 2-week layoff from that. Oh yeah, the hip injury, mind you, not the rib injury. So yeah, Richardson had some mixed results, managing the offense in his return game. But people have to remember that this season has always been about Anthony Richardson, getting the necessary reps, the reps that he had lost last year, and determining, whether or not he could be the guy, taking those steps to whether or not that he could be the guy that the Colts were looking for when they drafted him with the 4th, 5th overall pick in last year's draft. So, yeah, these are valuable reps that Anthony Richardson are getting. He's not going to get them sitting behind Joe Flacco for unnecessary reasons. So, Colts fans have to remember that too. Sure, they may have a little bit of playoff aspirations if they stay in the hunt, but we also have to be realistic that Richardson needs to get these reps that he couldn't get last year. And Dolphins fans, they might have a little bit of good news when I get into the week that will be later on in the episode. Then we had a very interesting contest, probably one of the very few this past week, as the Vikings returned from their bye week and came back from an 11-point deficit to take the lead late in this one against the Detroit Lions. But Jake Bates of Detroit gave the lead and the win right back for the Lions with a go-ahead field goal with 15 seconds left, as the Lions handed Minnesota their first loss of the year, 31-29. And man, what a game this was. And probably one of the few saving graces of the week, in my opinion. And let's just say, the Lions, they are firmly established themselves as the cream of the crop in the NFC. I mean, even though, yes, it really hurt them to lose one of their top players in Aiden Hutchinson last week. But yeah, they were certainly beat up in the pass rush this week against Minnesota, but it's not like everything else crumbled around them. Jared Goff and the offense were still playing relatively well. The defense didn't miss a beat against Sam Darnold and the Vikings. They did manage to get to him for a few points. So yeah, the Lions, they still went toe-to-toe, beat for beat against a Vikings team that actually is still strong enough, playoff contenders. They'll still be in the division race. Sure, they lost, but they still have some things to clean up. not a perfect team. They actually still played some relatively good defense against a Lions team that went to the NFC Championship game last year. That still is red hot. So this is just a pound for pound heavyweight fight that in the end somebody had to win. So both of these teams are still going to be firmly in the playoff race when it's all said and done. So in the end, somebody had to win. Then in the Meadowlands, the big blue side of the Meadowlands, Jalen Hurts 2 tush push touchdowns, like a tush push merchant that he is. I'm just kidding. And a big rushing day for Saquon Barkley in his return back to New York. Got the Eagles an easy win over the Giants, 28-3. So yeah, not much else to say in this one. The Eagles, they keep winning. The headlines will stay away from Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia. But for the Giants, something notable happened in this game, and that was the fourth quarter benching of Daniel Jones for Drew Lock. Now, maybe it had to do with Daniel Jones not wanting to get injured by his head coach, but that early in the fourth quarter might be interesting though to watch out going forward. Going to the late afternoon slate of games, down in SoFi, Kyron Williams rushed for 2 touchdowns, but the Rams had to hold on for dear life to escape with the win against a beat-up Raiders team, 20-15. The Raiders don't have a lot going on for it. They lost Aiden O'Connell to a broken thumb early in the game, so came back in Gardner Minshew. So, yeah, not really a whole lot to take away from the Las Vegas Raiders, other than the fact that WrestleMania tickets are fucking expensive as hell. Like, what the fuck? Have you seen the ticket prices? Are you insane? Like, what the fuck is TKO? Mark Davis, fucking Gardner Minshew's fucking bitch ass charging, and fucking Antonio Pierce. What the fuck is Allegiant Stadium charging for this shit? Like, what the hell? It's like they're pricing out the fucking average consumer. They're fucking charging out the filthy casual fan. Like, it's like 12. I'm going on a side rant. Like $1,200, like for the same section I sat in 2 years ago in SoFi. Like, what are we doing here? Maybe the prices have changed, but it's like changed now after I'm done with this episode. But it's like, what the fuck? It's like, what are we doing? And it's Vegas and all that, but still, if you want to bring the filthy casual fans back in, it's just like, don't price them out, man. Don't price them out. It's like, come on here. Anyway, back to football. If you want to look for a bright spot for Las Vegas, look for rookie tight end Brock Bowers. He is basically the only reliable receiver for both quarterbacks. And I say that because, well, like I said, no Aiden O'Connell. You also don't have Jacoby Myers because he was injured going into this game. And, well, they just traded away Devontae Adams to the Gang Green side of New York. So, the rest of the way, I say Brock Bowers was probably the only bright spot that there is in Vegas. Who, by the way, again, like, lower your prices for WrestleMania, please. So anyway, I mean, not saying I'm you know, I'm just like curious. I'm curious. So anyway, meanwhile for the Rams, man, like they may have won this game, but boy, do they need to get healthy, because if they want to like have any inch of trying to win that division or just stay in the playoff race in general, like they really need their health back. And they are slowly, surely getting there, but this game against a beat up Raiders team that they couldn't even like blow out, like they barely skirted by. It's like they just couldn't put them away, and it showed that they need help back. They need Puka Nacua back. They need Cooper Kupp back. But fortunately for them, help is on the way, and it's coming soon. Then in the nation's capital, moving on, the Commanders put together another 40 bomb, this time against the hapless Carolina Panthers, beating them 40-7 in an easy win for them. It came at a little bit of a price, though, because Jane Daniels left the game with a rib injury, a rib fracture. Then that's going to be something to monitor if he plays next week against the Chicago Bears. So that heavily hyped up match between Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams is in real danger with that rib fracture. They're saying right now, as I'm recording this, it's week to week. That's a week to week injury. And if he can't play, it is what it is, which is unfortunate that he won't be able to play. But if he doesn't, but safety first, as I always like to say, you don't want to risk his long-term health because, well, as we've seen before with the health of other Washington quarterbacks, biggest example, RG3. Yeah, you don't want to take any chances. Like, you really don't want to take any chances, especially in a mid-season, regular season game. Even if, the NFL flexed this game to an early, in a late afternoon primetime slot. Then, in the game I really don't want to talk about, in this Super Bowl rematch, the game that people, it's going to be a revenge game for San Francisco. But unfortunately, it wasn't for those people that were believing in it. It was a defensive slugfest for a good chunk of this game. And, well, they actually did kind of have a chance to get some revenge until the 49ers were reintroduced to their daddy Mahomes. Not their daddy Dom, because that belongs to someone else. Daddy Mahomes brought himself back to life in the fourth quarter as Patrick Mahomes led 2 scoring drives against San Francisco in the fourth quarter, put them away 28-18 in this Super Bowl rematch. Just another regular season contest for the Kansas City Chiefs. So when you look at it for the Chiefs, yeah, they struggled just as much as the 49ers, but you know how Kansas City won this game? As I talked about in my recap of this game in a dedicated video on YouTube, Mahomes and the offense, they adapted by keeping it simple. And they're going to have to keep it simple going forward, especially considering the fact that they don't have a top receiver right now. They don't have Hollywood Brown. They don't have Rashee Rice because of injuries. And yeah, like they have to adapt. Like their passing game, it can't go any further downfield because, well, they either drop the ball or Mahomes overshoots it because he can't trust anybody. So what Andy Reid did this week was adapt it by making it simple with short passes and more emphasis on the rushing attack with Kareem Hunt, and eventually when he comes back, Isaiah Pacheco. So they will probably pique their interest on what's there in the trade market for if there's any in the top receiver. But for now, they're going to have to likely stick it out with this formula that helped them this week against San Francisco. Meanwhile, for San Francisco, I could sit there all day talking about how I'm like so disappointed in them and all that jazz. But what's the point? I'll just say this. All San Francisco had to do on February 11th, on that date in Las Vegas, was finish the story. It was simple as that. Now, when they failed to do that, I feared that the follow-up was going to get ugly. And here we are, nearly midway through this season. It has. And this game, like I talked about in the lead up to it, was the visualization of it. The consequences of not winning the Super Bowl, not finishing the story, like Kyle Shanahan should have done, is coming to life. It is coming to life. And the latest instance of that, Brandon Aiyuk becoming the latest victim of the 49ers' latest reduct of injury mania running wild in Santa Clara, pal. It's like, what you gonna do when injury mania runs wild on you? Oh man. See what happens when you get me all riled up? For all my audio listeners out there, I just had to drink a sip of water because, man, my injury mania voice is not working today. But anyway, yeah, you had a chance to win the Super Bowl and you did it. And now it's basically 2020 repeated. No Christian McCaffrey because of that injury. Hopefully he'll come back. We lost Javon Hargrave to a season-ending injury, and now here we are, Brandon Aiyuk. He tore his ACL, unfortunately, and his MCL, so that's going to keep him out even longer past, who knows how long, till next year. So, the quality play is also middling. Not good. Not good for my 49ers. And they have a date with a particular team next Sunday night. Then they have the bye week, and then there's the tough stretch of games the rest of the way. Fun times ahead for this Super Bowl hangover. All they had to do was finish the story in February. Kyle Shanahan. One job. So anyway, moving on to the Sunday Night Football game. Russell Wilson made his first start as a Steeler. And as much as I was questioning him a little bit, he actually played relatively nice. 3 total touchdowns. And he had a relatively clean performance against Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, beating them 36-15. That last score they made, though, just, stat padding, if we're being honest. But nonetheless, Mike Tomlin for this week made the right call to go with Russell Wilson, but he just better hope that Wilson will deliver the next week against the Giants. But he probably will. But the tougher stretch looms after the bye week when their division games start racking up. But we'll see how Russell Wilson will do going forward. Meanwhile, for the New York Jets, so far, what we're seeing with the Davante Adams trade, nothing different, if we're being honest. I mean, Aaron Rodgers and the offense still can't get anything going. The leading receiver was actually the running back, Breece Hall. But like I said, whether or not they make the move, the offensive line still can't protect Aaron Rodgers. Like, receivers can't protect Aaron Rodgers. And then the defense also allowed 24 unanswered points in the second half. So it's like, Davante Adams is not going to solve all your problems. So then we go into a Monday Night Football doubleheader for this past week to wrap it up. The Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. He threw for 5 touchdowns, but the Ravens had a little bit of a comeback scare from the Tampa Bay Bucks late in the game, but managed to hold them off 41-31. The Ravens offense looking good. Had their best showing of the season. Even though Derrick Henry wasn't involved much in this game until late, he didn't need to be because the passing attack was the story of the night. Zay Flowers got hurt a little bit during this game, but Rashad Bateman, who I kind of who was a little harsh on early on in my podcast lifespan and throughout it, Rashad Bateman finally got his number called to step up. And so did Mark Andrews. He came back to life after a slow start to the year. So they had their numbers called and stepped up for Lamar Jackson. And the Ravens were also a force in this game defensively when Baker Mayfield lost some of his key guys. So the Ravens will be a force if Jackson can get Bateman and Andrews involved as they did on Monday. Alongside, of course, Zay Flowers and a name that hasn't been mentioned a lot in the last couple of weeks for Baltimore, Isaiah Likely. He's kind of been off the radar for a little bit of a while. Meanwhile, for the Tampa Bay Bucks, yeah, not exactly a good game from them, but let's worry less about the loss for Tampa Bay because 2 notable things happened in this one. The first one was Mike Evans leaving this game because he aggravated the hamstring injury. So not sure why he wanted to go in this game, but I mean, that was his choice, but he paid the price for it, but not looking good. So the good news is he's only going to be out for after the bye week. The bad news was losing one of the other top receivers though, Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin, for some reason, was still in the game late when the game was already well out of hand. Yeah, they were making their farce comeback attempt, but Chris Godwin, he suffered a season-ending dislocated ankle with very few seconds left in the game. Like, why he was in there, I don't know, but I thought it was kind of unnecessary to have him in there. So Chris Godwin, he's out for the year with this dislocated ankle. And now you have a Bucs offense that's going to be significantly slowed down without Mike Evans. And now it's worse by losing Chris Godwin. At least you're going to get Mike Evans back. But it's like, it's not looking good these next couple weeks in the time being. With the Falcons coming up next week, you got the Chiefs in 2 weeks. And heck, you even got the beat up 49ers that can still do some damage before your bye week if you're Tampa Bay. Not looking good right now for the Bucs. Then we had the other Monday night game as Kyler Murray led a 2-minute drill to put his kicker Chad Ryland into position to score the game-winning field goal over the the Chargers in a game that was only on ESPN Plus. Whoever's brilliant idea that was. Arizona beat the Chargers 17-15. I mean, not really anything to take away from this game because a lot of inconsistency with both of these teams. Arizona had a okay defensive showing, but that was because the Chargers offense can't get anything going with the receiving core. Can't help out Justin Herbert. And then offensively, same thing. Like one drive, they would do good. The other drive, Murray can't get anything going with this team. A lot of back and forth, good and bad with both of these teams. Can't really tell you much when I took away from that one. So then we move on to our starts of week 7, starting with Eagles quarterback Saquon Barkley, 17 carries, 176 rushing yards, and a touchdown in that blowout win over the Giants. And then Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, that 5 touchdowns showing against the Tampa Bay Bucs. So, yeah, those were the main primary standouts for this past week. A relatively, not exactly fun week, if you ask me. Injury-riddled week for the NFL. Yeah, what you gonna do, brother? Injury mania, running wild on you. So, hopefully, this coming week will be relatively more forgiving on the injuries and relatively more forgiving and more exciting for fans because it hasn't been all that nice for us viewers. But that depends on your tastes and preferences. But in my opinion, it hasn't been real nice for us lately. But hopefully week 8 will present us something nice as we now transition over to the week that will be week number 8 in the NFL. And everyone's going to be in action this week. No one's on vacay. So sorry for any team that's trying to get their bye week, that's trying to get that week off. Not happening this week. Interesting why that's the case, but whatever. So there is a few interesting matchups here. A lot of division matchups this week, by the way. And I'm kind of digging it. I'm kind of digging a couple of these division matchups. Most of them, though, not so much. But hopefully, it brings some interesting closer games than expected. I mean, that's what we like the NFL for, right? Expecting the unexpected. So hopefully we get that rather than the predictable. So let's look at the Thursday night football game only on Amazon Prime for that Jeff Bezos money that kicks off week 8 as the Minnesota Vikings head out to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. Minnesota at 5-1, taking on the 2-4 LA Rams. The Rams trying to catch up to Arizona and San Francisco in the NFC West. The Rams getting a couple of bodies back on offense, notably Cooper Kupp, who might be on his way back. He's getting healthier and healthier. They also activated Puka Nacua back. Not activated. They designated him to return from injury reserve, but he probably won't play this week. But some positive news for the Rams. Meanwhile, for the Vikings, they have to find a way to bounce back this week after a close loss to the Lions, and that starts this week against the LA Rams. Going to the Sunday slate of games, starting with the early morning portion, as the Baltimore Ravens at 5-2 take on the 1-6 Cleveland Browns. The Ravens heading into their next division game looking to build on their impressive performance in Tampa Bay. And, well, the Cleveland Browns, they don't have Deshaun Watson anymore, but, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he could give you a little bit of trouble, but how that much trouble? Probably not. The Tennessee Titans at 1-5. They have to travel to the Motor City to take on the Detroit Lions at 5-1. The Lions returning from a successful 2-game road trip, taking down the Cowboys and not the Lions, the Vikings. But they got to be careful here. Even though they're taking on a 1-5 Tennessee team with a backup quarterback, they got to be careful. They don't want to fall into the potential of a trap game in the form of the Titans. So just be wary of that. A rematch of week 1, and there's actually a couple of divisional rematches here. This one is the first of many. The Indianapolis Colts at 4-3 look to get an upset of sorts in a season split on the Texans as they take on the Houston Texans at 5-2. They've been struggling a bit on offense in the last 2 weeks because, as I talked about in the week that was, CJ Stroud doesn't have his top man at receiver in Nico Collins. So, again, I'm hoping this week that Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, they really got to step it up, man. They really have to make some plays in that offense. Like, they can't just rely on Joe Mixon, running the ball, being that engine. Yes, he can be the glue that holds everything together, but in the passing game, you need Diggs and Dell to step it up, man. Then, in the land of all elite, traveling back from all in, going back to the land of all elite, maybe with a flavor of the Bucks of Suck. The Jaguars look to begin an all elite miracle run and build upon their London win against the hapless Patriots at 2-5, but they face a red hot Packers team at 5-2, and what's going to be the start of a brutal month-long stretch for Jacksonville. So they got to carry over what worked in London against New England. Will that work against Green Bay? That remains to be seen. Arizona looking to finally get some better flow and hopefully better consistency on both sides of the ball when they face a Dolphins team at 2-4, who could finally get Tua Tagovailoa back this week. I believe he's been activated off of IR from that concussion that he suffered back in week 3 against the Bills. So 2 teams that are kind of struggling right now, but especially Miami. But we'll see how Tua does this week. Hopefully they protect his ass, and Tua protects himself from injury. Like if he plays this week, like please, like we don't want him getting hurt. We don't want himself hurting himself. A rematch of week 3 that these 2 teams played as the New York Jets. Yes, that's week 3. The New York Jets look to keep their AFC East hopes alive against Drake May and the Patriots. Another game for Drake May to try and test himself out there. But who knows? Maybe Drake May could probably try and pull off an upset against a Jets team that's really struggling out there at the moment. So somebody's got to win this one. I mean, you never know what can happen in the NFL, but just saying. A rematch of their crazy Week 5 meeting on Thursday night that was only on Amazon Prime Video, as the Atlanta Falcons at 4-3 take on the also 4-3 Tampa Bay Bucks. But this one might not bring as many fireworks because of Tampa Bay's injury issues. But the Falcons don't seem to care either way. They don't care that Mike Evans is out. They won't care that Chris Godwin's out. They care about getting that win back. I don't know. It's Tampa Bay that needs to bounce back. But, I mean, the Falcons, they want that season sweep. They want to take firm control of the division. This is actually an opportunity to not just bounce back from that loss to Seattle. This is actually a great opportunity for the Falcons to take firm control of the NFC South. Go up 4-0. And with Tampa Bay's injury issues right now, hey, if you're the Falcons, looking at it from their perspective, sign me up for that. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles at 4-2 look to keep up their winning ways, going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, looking to get to an even 4-4 after starting out a pretty brutal 1-4. But the Bengals looking to keep their season alive nonetheless. And yeah, this should be an interesting matchup. See how the Bengals square up against an Eagles team that, that really starts off slow. But they've been winning recently against, well, in fairness, it was the Giants. And then who else did they beat? No, that was pretty much it. Yeah, it's just the Giants. Oh, and the skid marks. There we go. So this is a test for them, for both of these teams, to see which one can get their season back on track. Going to the afternoon slate of games, the New Orleans Saints travel to the powdered blue side of things, but they're free falling right now because of the injuries. But Spencer Rattler hopes to pull some tricks out of his ass when they visit a Chargers team and need to get something going, especially with Justin Herbert's receiving core. Like, they need him. They need each other to step up. The Chargers at 3-4. Like, Jim Harbaugh really needs to get his guys going. The Bills face another potential test when they travel to the northwest of Seattle to take on Geno Smith and the Seahawks, fresh off a bounce-back victory against Atlanta. The Bills at 5-2, looking to take firm control of the AFC East, whilst the Seahawks at 4-3. Even though they lost to the 49ers, again, they got that bounce-back win against Atlanta and looking to further take some control in the NFC West. But we'll see what happens. The Chicago Bears, the Washington Commanders square up 4-2 and 5-2. And, well, initially, it could seem like a battle of the top two picks in this year's draft, doing battle in the nation's capital. Caleb Williams is going up against Jaden Daniels. But that could be in danger because Jaden Daniels suffered a fractured rib in last week's contest against the Carolina Panthers. So if Jaden Daniels can't go, I mean, Caleb Williams will have to face a former number 2 overall pick. Yeah, number 2 overall pick in Marcus Mariota. But Marcus Mariota is no Jaden Daniels. At least not right now, or never. But still, yeah, if Jaden Daniels can't go, I mean, it's gonna rob us of a matchup. But safety first. But damn. But it'll still be a curious matchup nonetheless, because these are two teams that are in unexpected spots, competing not for a playoff spot and potentially competing for ascending in their divisions. So I'm interested to see how this matchup will fare, regardless of whether Jaden Daniels plays or not in this game. Some crazy shit can go down in this one. Then we have the 1-6 Carolina Panthers traveling to the Mile High to take on the 4-3 Denver Broncos. Denver fans, they're just hoping at this point to see Bo Nix unleashed by Sean Payne. Like, it's got to happen at some point, right? You got to take the train wheels off this guy when they host these hatless Panthers. And another edition of, well, a game somebody has to win. Then we have the Kansas City Chiefs at 6-0 taking on the Las Vegas Raiders at 2-5. I mean, well, yeah, we never know what can happen, but can we just say now that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to crush these guys? Can we? And if they do, can you just give the Chiefs free WrestleMania tickets? Yeah, I think it's safe to say that, right? Give Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid some like a large ass suite in Allegiant Stadium when in April. I think that's fair, right? I think that's fair. Like no Taylor Swift though. Like no Taylor in that suite. Just the Chiefs only. Like a nice suite where they can watch The Rock and Roman Reigns duke it out. Yeah, that would be nice. Then we have the Sunday Night Football game in a must-win situation for both the Dallas Cowboys at 3-3, returning from their bye to take on my San Francisco 49ers at 3-4. Both of these teams are pretty beat up, but it's a game that somebody has to win. It's a must-win game for both these teams because both of their playoff hopes are on a lifeline. Yes, this early in the season. So somebody's got to win this one. And if they don't, it's literally going down and down and down from there. Then we have the Monday Night Football game between the New York Giants at 2-5 against the Pittsburgh Steelers at 5-2. Like, how does the Pittsburgh Steelers have this many primetime games this early in the season? But whatever. As Russell Wilson looks to follow up his strong Steelers debut with another strong performance on the black and gold, hosting the listless Giants on a Monday night before the Steelers go on a bye week. So we'll see how Russell Wilson will do against Giants defense. It's literally carrying this team. That's literally the bright spot of the Giants right now. So that is the week that was and the week that will be around the 2024 NFL season. For this week, let me know your thoughts on the week that was in week number 7 and the week that will be in week 8. What were your standout performances from this past week? What was your favorite game from this week? Who's your stars of the week? And what was the worst moment of this week? And what's the expectation for you in week 8? As we're getting closer and closer to the halfway point of this season. And what are your picks too? Let me know in the comments on YouTube or send me a message on social media on Twitter and Instagram at VeryColdLasagna. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's be civil about it. Let's be respectful about it. Let's start some takes about it. But anyway, that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I am your filthy casual host, DylanLasagna. Thank you for tuning in to episode number 225 of this icy yet spicy podcast with all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports. Until I see you, when I see you, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge again. And until the next edition of another week that was and will be in the NFL in the next episode. Peace out.